You know what? This is so amazing. I thank you, God. Thank you, Father, so much. This is crazy because this is hip-hop music. The music industry is just a microcosm of the world. So whenever you stand for something and you stand for goodness and truth, you will always get resistance. That's period.
All right, let's talk about Lauryn Hill. We all know her, we all love her, right? That voice, those lyrics, that impact. But behind the iconic Miseducation, there's a story that's way deeper than just a hit album. We're talking about a woman who stood her ground in an industry that's notorious for chewing people up and spitting them out. Think about it. How many artists have we seen rise to fame only to seemingly lose themselves along the way? How many have compromised their values, their morals, just to stay in the spotlight? We've all heard the whispers, the rumors about powerful music moguls pushing artists to make deals with the devil, essentially sacrificing their souls for a taste of fame. Well, Lauryn Hill refused to play that game. She wouldn't compromise. She wouldn't sell out. Many believe the industry, in turn, essentially killed her career. So, the million-dollar question, why did Lauryn Hill, at the peak of her career, seemingly vanish from the mainstream? Was it a voluntary exit, a conscious decision to step away from the blinding lights? Or was she subtly, or not so subtly, pushed out of the very machine that had propelled her to stardom? Whispers abound about Lauryn's refusal to participate in the unspoken rules of the industry, the same compromises and rituals that many artists quietly accept as the price of admission. Some claim she was essentially blacklisted, punished for daring to speak truth to power, for prioritizing integrity over manufactured fame. As she herself alluded to, standing for truth and dedicating oneself to serving others often comes at a cost. Did Lauryn Hill simply reject the industry's darker underbelly? Was her highly publicized tax evasion case a convenient excuse, a carefully orchestrated setup designed to tarnish her image and derail her career? What transpired behind those closed doors, in those hushed meetings, that ultimately led her to walk away from the empire she had helped build? Let's not forget, Lauryn Hill was more than just a singer. She was a cultural force. Her journey began with the Fugees, where her commanding vocals and undeniable charisma instantly marked her as a star. But it was the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, her groundbreaking solo debut, that solidified her legendary status. That album was a seismic event, a revolutionary fusion of hip-hop, R&B, and soul that resonated with millions. It swept the Grammys, earning her 5 awards, and became one of the best-selling albums in history.
Like a complete blessing that there were people, not only in New York, Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Bronx, New Jersey, who appreciated our music, but people out here in Amsterdam, people in New Zealand, and Australia, and Africa were buying records from the Fugees.
Beyond the awards and the chart-topping hits, Lauryn Hill possessed a profound spirituality, a deep-seated conviction to remain authentic and untainted by the industry's pervasive influence. She frequently spoke about the critical importance of staying true to one's core values, of resisting the temptation to lose oneself in the superficial expectations of the music business. This unwavering commitment to her principles, however, would ultimately pit her against the very establishment that had initially embraced her. Lauryn Hill was far more than just a gifted artist. She was a young black woman navigating a predominantly male landscape, and she vehemently refused to be controlled or manipulated. She witnessed firsthand the exploitative practices of record labels, the way executives preyed on vulnerable young talent, and the industry's prioritization of profit over genuine artistic expression. Lauryn's vision extended far beyond simply churning out hit records. She aspired to create timeless music that would uplift, inspire, and educate rather than merely entertain. But the industry had a different agenda. Many suspect that Lauryn's rebellious spirit, her refusal to conform, made her a target. She wasn't willing to play by their rules, and in response, the industry subtly, then overtly, began to turn against her. While countless other artists dutifully followed the formula dictated by record labels, Lauryn pushed back, fiercely asserting her right to create music on her own terms, according to her own artistic vision. Even during her time with the Fugees, Lauryn Hill's complex and often tumultuous relationship with Wyclef Jean became a significant source of internal conflict within the group, further highlighting her independent spirit and unwillingness to compromise. But what was the case with Wyclef? Alright, let's really dive into this Lauryn and Wyclef situation, because it's juicy and it's crucial to understanding what happened next. So imagine this, she was in a band, she was making incredible music, and she was also falling for her bandmate. Sounded like a movie, right? Except, in this movie, there's a major plot twist. Wyclef's already married. Yikes. What started as a deep creative connection, a real artistic spark, quickly morphed into something way more complicated, way more tangled. Their chemistry was undeniable, and it fueled the Fugees' early success. But as their relationship got more chaotic, it started to poison everything around them. It's like the personal drama became the elephant in the recording studio, the unspoken tension hanging over every performance. Think about it. You're trying to write a song about love and unity when your own love life is a complete disaster. It's gotta be tough, right? And the fact that Wyclef was married just added fuel to the fire. It created this undercurrent of guilt, resentment, and just plain awkwardness. Meanwhile, Lauryn was coming into her own as an artist. She was finding her voice, her style, her power. She was starting to realize that she had something unique to say, and she wanted to say it her way, but she was feeling trapped, like she's being held back. Wyclef, on the other hand, later admitted that he struggled with jealousy as Lauryn's star began to shine brighter. He was used to being the leader, the front man, and suddenly, Lauryn was stealing the spotlight. She wasn't just the girl from the Fugees anymore. She was becoming the Fugees, the one everyone was talking about.
A lot of people blame me for what has become of Lauryn Hill. And the fact that she's not out and about in the music industry. If you've read this far, you have to understand she and I had a very complicated relationship, and I take my blame, I'll take my blame for my side of the pain and confusion. No doubt my marriage hurt her, but the fact that she more or less left music behind can't be explained that simply.
And it wasn't just about the personal stuff. Creative differences started to bubble to the surface. Lauryn wanted more control over her music, more say in the direction of the band. She had a vision, a specific sound she was going for, and she wasn't willing to compromise. And that's where things really started to unravel. That's where the cracks started to show, ultimately leading to the Fugees' demise and Lauryn's solo journey. Now, let's not paint Wyclef as the villain here, because he had his own ambitions and his own vision for the Fugees. He wasn't just going to step aside and let Lauryn take over completely. He had ideas, he had songs, and he wanted his voice to be heard too. That's where the real conflict came in. It wasn't just about personal drama, it was about two strong-willed artists with different ideas about where the group should go. This tension became impossible to ignore. You could feel it in their music, in their interviews, in their performances. And even though the score became a massive, groundbreaking success, it was clear to everyone that the Fugees were barely holding on. They were like a house built on sand, just waiting for the next wave to crash in. And then came the final blow, Lauryn's pregnancy with Rohan Marley, Bob Marley's son. This was the breaking point, the moment that shattered any remaining illusion of unity. Wyclef, in a later interview, claimed that he initially believed the baby was his. Can you imagine the shock, the confusion, the hurt? When he found out the truth, he felt utterly betrayed, not just as a bandmate, but as a man. This revelation deepened the already gaping rift between them, making it virtually impossible to continue as a group. The trust was gone, the respect was gone, and the shared vision had completely dissolved. Lauryn was young, fiercely ambitious, and absolutely unwilling to compromise her values or her artistic integrity. She was ready to forge her own path, even if it meant leaving the Fugees behind. The stage was set for the Miseducation, but also for the challenges and controversies that would. After that, she decided to go solo. Now, when she decided to go solo, it started out really strong. She had stepped foot in the hip-hop industry, but what she didn't know was that the hip-hop circle came with its fair share of snakes, and Wyclef was a cute little panda in front of them.
I think everything happens in time. You know, there's a time for everything. There's a time to be in a group, and there's a time to be solo. At least it was for me.
After she decided to go solo, it was 1998, the year Lauryn Hill unleashed her debut solo album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, upon the world. And from the instant it hit the shelves, or, you know, the internet downloads of the time, it was undeniably clear. This wasn't just another album release. This was a cultural earthquake, with tracks like Doo Wop, That Thing, X Factor, and Everything is Everything. Lauryn masterfully blended hip-hop, R&B, soul, and reggae, crafting a sound that was both deeply personal and universally relatable. I mean, who didn't feel that "you know you better watch out" vibe? The album was a monumental success, exploding onto the scene at #1 on the Billboard 200 and selling over 10 million copies in the US alone. And then came the Grammys. She walked away with 5 awards in one night, a truly historic moment that cemented her status as the first woman to achieve such a feat. Lauryn Hill was officially the queen of hip-hop hip-hop and R&B, sitting on top of the world. But, as the saying goes, what goes up must come down. And just as rapidly as she ascended to the pinnacle of success, things began to unravel. The very industry that had showered her with praise and accolades was now subtly, then not so subtly, turning against her. And fans saw what was being done to her. One person wrote on X, Lauryn Hill said, "Everybody wants to know where you're going to, because they want to come, or so they think, until they find the cost of it, until they find out what you lost for it. I felt that." Soon, Lauryn would be forced to confront the harsh reality of what happens when an artist dares to defy the established order, when they refuse to be controlled and manipulated. The music industry is rife with cautionary tales about the price of fame, the compromises artists must make to stay relevant, the deals they make with the devil. Many believe that Lauryn Hill simply refused to pay that price, and that's why her story took such a dramatic turn. Lauryn herself started to speak out about how fame felt like a gilded cage, a beautiful trap. She talked about her desire to create music on her own terms, to express herself authentically, but the industry just wouldn't allow it. It was like she was constantly fighting against a current, and the more she resisted, the more she was ostracized, shut out from opportunities, and subtly blacklisted. And then came the lawsuit, the legal battle that would further complicate her already precarious situation. In 1998, the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill was hailed as a masterpiece, a deeply personal and introspective album that resonated with millions. It was presented to the world as Lauryn's unfiltered vision, a raw and honest reflection of her emotions and experiences. But just as the album reached its zenith, a lawsuit was filed that threatened to dismantle the very foundation of Lauryn's career and reputation. Four musicians, Vada Nobles, Rasheem Pugh, Johari Newton, and Taja Mold Newton, stepped forward, claiming that they were major contributors to the album, but were never properly credited or compensated for their work. They alleged that Lauryn took full credit for songwriting and production, despite their significant contributions to the album's creation. This lawsuit wasn't just about financial compensation. It was about recognition, about artistic integrity, and about the power dynamics within the music industry. The lawsuit quickly morphed into a public trial of Lauryn's artistic integrity. The very same industry that had once lauded her as a musical genius suddenly began to cast doubt on her abilities, questioning whether she had truly written the songs herself. The whispers started. Was she a fraud? Was her success built on the backs of others? The case dragged on for years, a constant source of negative publicity and stress. Finally, in 2001, Lauryn settled the lawsuit for a reported $5 million, a staggering sum that only fueled further speculation about what had transpired behind the scenes. Was she admitting guilt? Was she simply trying to make the whole thing go away? Many viewed the lawsuit as more than just a legal dispute. They saw it as an orchestrated attack on Lauryn Hill, a deliberate attempt to discredit her and diminish her influence. The settlement, while resolving the legal issue, did little to clear her name or restore her reputation. Instead, the industry seized the opportunity to portray her as a tough person to work with. They called her ungrateful and problematic, a narrative that would follow her for years to come.
Lauryn Hill is blaming the media for sensationalizing
her last canceled tours
and missing shows.
And Lauryn Hill herself has pointed fingers at the media, accusing them of sensationalizing her story, focusing on the negative aspects, and amplifying the perception of her as unreliable, particularly when it came to her canceled tours and missed shows. The narrative was shifting, and Lauryn was finding herself increasingly isolated. While the lawsuit certainly played a significant role in the public perception of Lauryn Hill's career trajectory, many within the industry whispered a different story, a narrative that painted a far more sinister picture. These sources, often speaking anonymously for fear of reprisal, suggested that the lawsuit, while damaging, was merely a symptom of a deeper issue: Lauryn's refusal to play the game. According to these insiders, the real problem wasn't the legal dispute, but rather Lauryn's rejection of the powerful moguls who controlled the music industry. She wouldn't compromise her artistic vision, she wouldn't conform to their expectations, and she wouldn't participate in the unspoken rituals that many artists accepted as the price of fame. This defiance, these sources claimed, made the moguls nervous. They were used to controlling artists, shaping their images, and dictating their careers. Lauryn's independence threatened their power, and they resented her for it. They saw her as a loose cannon, someone who couldn't be controlled, and that made them uneasy. The word on the street, according to these industry whispers, was that the moguls wanted to teach Lauryn a lesson, to show her what happens when you defy the established order. They wanted to send a message to other artists: toe the line or face the consequences. While the lawsuit provided a convenient public narrative, The real motivation, these sources alleged, was to punish Lauryn for her independence and to reassert control over the industry. It might have looked like the lawsuit brought her down, but in reality, it was the rejection of the moguls that sealed her fate. The media, ever eager for a sensational story, latched onto the narrative that Lauryn was a diva, an ungrateful artist who had turned her back on those who had helped her achieve success. This portrayal, whether accurate or not, served to further isolate her within the industry. Labels that had once clamored to work with her began to distance themselves, fearing the perceived trouble she represented. Executives who had once hailed her as a musical genius now whispered behind closed doors that she was unreliable, unstable, and simply too difficult to manage. She had dared to challenge the system, and the system in turn fought back with a vengeance. Lauryn wasn't just battling a lawsuit, she was waging war against an entire industry that didn't tolerate independent thinkers, particularly those who dared to question its established practices. Lauryn's unwavering refusal to conform, to play by the rules, made her an enemy of the industry establishment. Many believed that if she had been a male artist, the backlash wouldn't have been nearly as severe. After all, the history of hip-hop is filled with examples of male artists who borrowed lyrics, beats, and ideas from collaborators without facing the same level of public scrutiny or condemnation. But Lauryn was different. She was a black woman who dared to demand complete control over her art, and the industry, steeped in its own biases and power structures, simply wasn't prepared for that. She spoke openly and honestly about the exploitative practices of record labels, how they placed artists in perpetual debt, and how they pressured musicians to conform to rigid industry standards, stifling their creativity and individuality. And let's be real, this wasn't some isolated incident. These powerful figures, these gatekeepers of the music industry, had a long history of blacklisting artists, producers, and anyone who dared to cross them. So, in a way, as Lauryn's career began to crumble, it felt almost predictable. We had seen it happen before, the systematic dismantling of a talent who dared to challenge the status quo. It was a harsh reality, but one that many in the industry knew all too well. The more you look at Lauryn Hill's story, the more you see echoes of other artists who dared to challenge the industry's norms and paid the price. It's like a recurring nightmare, a pattern of silencing those who refuse to conform. And the case of Monique, the Oscar-winning actress, is a particularly chilling example. Remember how Monique was essentially blackballed after she refused to heavily promote Precious without proper compensation. She was labeled difficult to work with, ungrateful, and demanding. The same tired tropes often used to discredit strong black women who stand up for themselves. It's a playbook the industry seems to rely on, a way to control and silence those who threaten the established power structure. Looking at Lauryn's situation, the parallels are undeniable. Both women were incredibly talented, both achieved significant success, and both dared to challenge the industry's exploitative practices. And both were met with swift and decisive backlash, their careers seemingly derailed by the very institutions that had once celebrated them. The difficult to work with label is a powerful weapon, a way to isolate and marginalize artists, making it harder for them to find work and maintain their influence. It's a way of saying, if you don't play our game, we'll make sure no one else will play with you. And the fact that this label has been applied to so many black women who dared to speak truth to power makes it all the more disturbing. It's a reminder that the fight for artistic freedom and fair treatment is far from over, and that the industry still has a long way to go in terms of recognizing and respecting the contributions of black women. The familiarity of Monique's story only underscores the systemic issues at play in Lauryn Hill's career downfall. Rumors began to circulate, whispers that she was mentally unstable, that she had lost her creative spark, that she would never again grace the world with her musical genius.
I'm not in the studio right now, and everybody in my world thinks I'm crazy. What's going on? You need another album out. You know, the time is running out. You have a window, a certain window to make music.
Many believed that this campaign of misinformation was intentional, a deliberate effort to further tarnish her image and solidify the narrative of her as a difficult and unreliable artist. Reports surfaced, often from unnamed sources, that Lauryn was severing ties with former friends, bandmates, and collaborators, further reinforcing the perception of her as isolated and erratic. She reportedly refused to work under any industry contract, continued to speak out against the exploitative practices of record labels, and became increasingly reclusive, retreating from the public eye. As Lauryn withdrew further from the music scene, another storm was brewing on the horizon, a legal battle that would ultimately contribute to her downfall in the eyes of the public and further cement the narrative of her as a troubled artist. Then, in 2012, the hammer dropped. Lauryn Hill was charged with tax evasion for allegedly failing to pay taxes on more than $1.8 million in income earned between 2005 and 2007. The government accused her of deliberately avoiding tax payments, despite having earned earned millions during that period. Facing potentially severe legal consequences, Lauryn was ultimately sentenced to 3 months in prison in 2013. A seemingly straightforward case of tax evasion, right? But was it really that simple? Or was Lauryn being specifically targeted by the industry, using the legal system as a weapon to further punish her for her continued defiance? Lauryn herself certainly suggested that the case was politically motivated, a calculated move to silence her and destroy her career. She claimed that after distancing herself from the music industry and speaking out against its exploitative practices, she became a threat to the established system. In a public statement, Lauryn explained that she had removed herself from the industry to protect her safety and well-being, and that she was being punished for resisting the oppressive structures of the business. She argued that the tax evasion charges were a convenient way for the powers that be to discredit her, silence her voice, and ultimately kill her career. Many of her supporters echoed this sentiment, believing that her case wasn't just about unpaid taxes. They saw it as a deliberate attempt to silence her, to send a message to other artists who might be considering challenging the industry's norms. The tax evasion charges, they argued, were simply a cover, a convenient excuse to bring her down in any way possible. The goal, they believed, was to completely erase her influence and ensure that she would never again pose a threat to the established order. So, what do you think? Comment down below and let us know. If you like this video, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to be the first to see my next video. I post updates like this every week where I uncover the secrets of your favorite celebrities.